Hello, my presentation is going to focus on labeling theory. To begin, I will briefly explain how labeling theory came to be. The origins of labeling theory can be found in Emile Durkheim's book, Suicide. In it, he says that crime is an act that outrages society more so than a violation of written or unwritten laws. He was the first to suggest that deviant labeling satisfies that function and satisfies society's need to control the behavior. This meaning that the creation of labels may be seen as a way to control or repel deviant behavior. Many years and many psychologists later, Howard Becker began to expand on the growing labeling theory. Becker writes, social groups create deviance by making rules whose infraction creates deviance, and by applying those rules to particular people and labeling them as outsiders. From this point of view, deviance is not a quality of the act the person commits, but rather a consequence of the application by other roles and sanctions to an offender. The deviant is the one to whom that label has been successfully applied. Deviant behavior is behavior that people so label. In labeling theory, it is said that the behavior of individuals may be determined, influenced, or even predicted by the terms used to describe or classify any given individual. Deviant behavior stems from the repercussions of negatively labeling children, minorities, and others seen as standing out against cultural norms or committing minor crimes. An example of a minor crime would simply be a child stealing a piece of gum from Wawa. Labeling theory states that the deviance itself is not the issue, but the labeling that comes as a result is. To properly understand labeling theory, it is important to have a proper understanding of what deviance actually is. Now, deviance is an action or behavior that violates social norms. It is also seen as an absence of conformity to these norms. So, simply not wanting to conform to a norm that you may not believe in is considered a deviant act. Now, from that, it can be said that deviance in itself is not a bad thing. Labeling theory suggests that people obtain labels from how others view their tendencies or behaviors. To go back to my previous example of a child stealing gum from Wawa, the child's mother or father may call him a thief or a criminal, so according to labeling theory, the child would then tend to lean towards behaviors that would make this label true. The child would essentially become a thief or a criminal simply due to having been labeled as such. Labeling theory is seen as a self-fulfilling prophecy because of this. The deviant offender, whether a small child or young adult, will grow to become whatever they have been labeled as. Labeling theory does not appear to be falsifiable because there is no empirical evidence that supports the theory. There are simply too many factors involved in becoming a criminal to claim that calling someone a criminal while they were at a young age is the sole reason they fall into that kind of a lifestyle. This theory also does not take into account the upbringing or any genetic or biological factors of any given individual. Also, it doesn't take into account calling someone a genius or a doctor when they are young. So, according to labeling theory, if I was labeled as an attorney at a young age, I should grow up to fill this role. We all know that this logic is simply not true, because if it was, then nearly everyone would grow up to be the President of the United States.